I have given feedback on multiple people's work. When doing this, I try to give feedback on anything that might make the application more user-friendly. I also acknowledge that it is clear that they've put a lot of work into their design. No, sometimes it's hard to receive critical feedback, so also having that person who's giving that critical feedback to address and acknowledge how hard they worked is encouraging, at least for me. When giving feedback, I make sure that my comments are not too cold or harsh. For example, the alignment here is wrong, and instead go for something softer, such as you may want to check on the alignment, it looks a bit off. In receiving feedback, I responded to people's tones differently. I am always open to feedback and eagerly encourage it so I can improve my design. However, I found when the feedback on my design was more cold and rigid, my immediate reaction was to be defensive. However, I would take a step back, review the comment, and apply it to my work, and more often than not would find that it was relevant feedback that did improve my process and my project. I had to remind myself in those times to embrace all feedback, even if it comes across harshly. Based on my experience working with my teammates, they would describe me as helpful and encouraging. People would often come to me to bounce ideas off of me to see if they were on the right track. They would also describe me as knowledgeable and hardworking, as I've been able to answer many questions for colleagues that have come to me, and generally, I've never really fallen behind on my work. In my last position, I was the engagement ambassador for our team. We had worked in the office for a long time, but when COVID came around, we all went home and worked remotely. So there were no more office birthdays, holiday potlucks, or random people bringing donuts in just for fun. We were not able to really engage in any of the fun competitions in the same way we did in the office. Because of this, I found new ways for us to engage with each other in a professional but fun manner. For this, my teammates would describe me as fun and creative. While designing Craft Connection, I originally did a card sorting study and found that people expected to see certain things on the home screen that I had not planned on putting there. The top of the screen listed the three main options, which were categories, community, and experts. From there, a user could find everything the application had to offer, but with the card sorting application the card sorting study, I found that the testers wanted to see classes, patterns, and gallery on the home screen as well. I created a tab at the bottom of the home screen with those options, the classes, patterns, and gallery, and for continuity, I kept that tab on almost every page of the application. This allowed the users to be able to navigate to these three options from almost anywhere in the application. However, it created some confusion. When a user would go into the community section of the application, there was a tab on the top and bottom with different options than everywhere else in the application. In the community, you could go to the gallery, you could pick an option, or pick a category, so you could select sewing and see sewing work that people had submitted. If you didn't pick a category, you could just see everyone's work. When a user would go into categories, let's say they pick sewing, the page opens up and has classes, patterns, and gallery across the top as the three main options. The gallery at the top would take them to the sewing gallery. However, those pages also had the tabs across the bottom that would say classes, patterns, and gallery. The gallery in that tab would take them to the community gallery so they could see everything that there was to offer. This obviously made some confusing situations where the users were not able to discern between the two options. I kind of went back to the drawing board. I changed the wording a little bit, but users were still confused. After learning that my changes so far had not resolved the issue, I re-examined the tabs and the labeling of the gallery in and out of the categories, so both in categories and community. I removed the bottom tabs from every page. They were a convenience that people had indicated they would prefer early on. However, the clarity and usability of the application was much more important. After removing all of the tabs, I shared my design with a fellow designer. We decided that it still wasn't clear that maybe by changing the name of the gallery within the categories, so like the sewing category where you have classes, patterns, and gallery across the top, maybe changing the word gallery to something different. I tried many different options, but finally settled on changing the description from gallery, within that sewing category, to studio. Studio helped reflect the artsy vibe of the application and resolved the confusion issue of why there was 2 galleries. I had a little trouble in the community as well. The tabs at the top were relevant, but there was a tab to take users to the community homepage. Early on, I labeled this tab Home, but I knew that it would probably be misleading as users might think it would take them to the application homepage. I was just kind of stuck on what else to call it. Usability testing confirmed my theory to be true, and everybody thought that would take them to the homepage. I asked users how they would feel if the tab were to be called Dashboard, but many of them felt that that was too cold or distant. I toyed with it for some time and landed on Community Home. However, these are small tabs and the words had to be stacked on top of each other, while all the other tabs were just single short words. In the end, I changed the tab to be labeled as Community. Again, a fellow designer reviewed it and stated if a user opened the community and landed on its home page, seeing the tab in a different color and drop down, which is the way the tabs were designed to be so that the user knows navigation-wise which tab they're in, this would help indicate the tab that was labeled Community would again take the user to the community homepage if they moved away from it. Changing these things brought a clearer process to navigating the application and made things less confusing. Questions I would ask an interviewer vary widely and depend on the company. Before the interview, I researched the company. I look for what types of charitable organizations they may support, what their customer and employee satisfaction ratings may be. I may have questions that arise out of that research. If the employee ratings are low, I might ask them to describe a day in the life of one of their employees, or ask them if they have any initiatives for engagement to inspire their employees. If the company supports charitable organizations that I believe are more harmful than good, I would probably not apply. One of the questions I also often ask interviewers is if they will describe for me their ideal candidate. This gives them a chance to really lay out in detail what they are looking for, but more importantly, it gives me a chance to gauge how well I would fit that description based on the interview so far. It also gives me a last opportunity to add anything I may have forgotten to help them understand that I fit the mold of their ideal candidate. I always ask this question at the end, and it has the benefit of them saying everything they want in a candidate and mentally checking off if I meet those desires. If I don't, that's okay, but if I do, they may leave the interview feeling that based on my answers, I'm a great fit for their company.